Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. You guys know this podcast and probably love it because I bring on incredible and extraordinary guests. And today I'm doing the exact same thing. And this is a special treat for me as well because, I know you may have heard me say it before, but I do get just people reaching out to me all the time saying, I love your podcast. I'm a listener. I would love to be a guest. People who are inside of my membership Mastery and Ascension are like, hey, I would love to be, and I love that. And I love having guests. It's my favorite to interview people. And I can't even believe I get to do this. It's honestly it's like a dream come true, and we're almost coming up on a year. It's absolutely crazy. So my special guest today is Hanna Bier, and Hanna is a family constellation therapist. She's also an energy healer. She is at Hanna, Hanna, Free Spirited on Instagram. So if you guys want to take a screenshot of this episode and tag me and Hanna in your IG stories, we'd love to hear from you as always. But Hanna reached out to me, and I actually, before we started recording, I was like, wait, how did we get connected? Because this is the first time we've really gotten to chat with each other, but I just knew you guys as a listeners would love what Hanna does and would resonate with it so much and really might even take the next step to get some of this work for yourself. So Hanna, I'm going to hand it over to you so you can share a little bit more about how you found me, how we kind of put this podcast situation together, and then let's just tell people sort of how you got to where you are.
Awesome, Emily. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. We talked, like you already said, we talked a little bit before we hit record, and it's always so nerve-wracking when I find a podcast I really like, and usually I take a screenshot on my phone and I just kind of listen to it a little bit, and then if I really, really, really like it, sometimes the idea comes, oh man, I really hope I can be a guest on this podcast. So I'm really honored and excited to be here. Thanks so much for saying yes to this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I don't say yes to everybody. There are certain people that I really resonate with, and there's no formula, they don't have to have, 100,000 followers and whatever that stuff is. It's really all based on energy and how I feel when I reach out. And actually that's exactly what happened with a podcast guest, Sarah Willerson. She reached out in the similar kind of way. And I was like, I don't know what it is about you, but I like you. We had an awesome episode. So I think also it's a great strategy to share with entrepreneurs who are podcast listeners, and, you're listening to get information and to grow, and, you're getting these insights. But what Hanna is suggesting is taking a screenshot to kind of keep as maybe it's a dream, a wish list. What if I was a guest on that podcast? And then she took action and was like, screw it, let's just go see. Maybe she'll have me on. So you said there are times when people decline, and sometimes they're nicer than other times. Have you felt like that's happened before to you?
Yeah, I also remember a couple years ago, I had my own podcast, and sometimes I would see people on the internet and have this message of compassion and love. And then as soon as I got into contact with them personally, it wasn't really what they were living.
Oh.
So it feels like that's been one of the things I needed to learn as an entrepreneur in the online space, is that it doesn't always, the front end of the business doesn't always match what it looks like behind the scenes. So now I'm not as wide-eyed anymore when I reach out to somebody. But yeah, I mean, we're just people like anybody else. Sometimes you just meet people in real life as well who aren't that nice. And the same is true about the online world.
I know. I feel like doing the praise hands, because it is so easy, especially online, is that you can be portrayed as a certain type of person and have gorgeous images and the best social media content. And then behind the scenes, you're just not at all that. And I have seen some people who are like that, but you're in regular life as well. It's not just an online business, but we can put up these facades and these masks to make people think one thing. But it is so refreshing to connect with people who are the same way in front of the camera as they are behind the camera as well. So it's really nice. So let's just hear a little bit more, tell the listeners more about you, how you became an energy healer, what kind of energy healing you do, and tell us a little bit more about what is constellation therapy. We want to know everything. Let's know.
Sure. So I work as an energy healer and family constellation therapist, and I work with women from all over the world who have really big dreams for their lives. So I basically help them identify what their ideal life would look like. You know, what would their business or career would look like? Where would they live? How often would they travel? How much money would they make? What would their love life look like? And then, because that's something that I've been passionate about my entire life, like to really build that perfect, supernatural, amazing life. It's something that I've always wanted for myself. It's something that I've been building for basically my entire life. And then I'm clairvoyant. So I see energy and I see it as clearly as I see objects. Like right now, I'm sitting in my office and there's like my easel behind me with little paintings and stuff like that. And I see energy as clearly as that. And so when I was little, I when I was at school, I was pointing at some numbers on the bus and like telling my friends, isn't it funny how the different numbers have colors surrounding them? And I would say, isn't it weird that 3 is always red and like 2 is always yellow and 4 is always green? And my friends looked at me and they said, no, Hannah, there's no colors around them. And that's kind of the first time when I realized, wait a minute, I think I'm seeing something that other people don't see. And then I just thought to myself, well, maybe their eyesight isn't great. Like maybe they should go get some glasses or like I never questioned my own sanity. I just always thought, what's up with people that they just don't see the most obvious things? And then later on in life, like it just kept repeating where I pointed at something and people said, that's not there, Hannah. Or where I was able to like read something that was really far away and where I could like identify things that just other people didn't see. And I didn't think much about it. And then years later, I felt the call to start a coaching business. And that's when I first stumbled upon the idea of being psychic. And immediately it was so clear to me that I definitely wasn't that. Like there was nothing magical about my ability. It was just clear as day for me. It felt so matter of fact. And it didn't feel like anything spiritual at all. I was just like, well, of course, when I look at a person, I can see if they have daddy issues or no. You know, of course, I can see like where the abundance blocks are sitting. Are you kidding me? And so that's basically how I started to kind of open up to the idea that my clairvoyance could actually help me help people.
And so this is like my own curiosity. Your clairvoyance, do you see when you see with your physical eyes as well as your third eye, or primarily with your physical eyes?
It's a little tricky. So sometimes I'm like the crazy person at parties. So one of my friends has 2 teenage daughters, and every time I'm at their house, they always walk on over and give me a piece of paper so I can draw their auras and stuff. And then I do look at people and I see the colors, I think, with my physical eyes. But most of my clients are all over the world. Like I have clients in Australia and Brazil and China and the United States and stuff like that. So I just usually on calls, I close my eyes and I read energy that way.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's a mix.
I think it sounds like a mix because I see primarily with my eyes closed. So I'm seeing with my third eye, but there are times where my eyes are open, and similar to what you say, you see something that wasn't there, like, you know, like a little sparkle or a little color fling, and you're like, and like that is with your physical eyes. But it sounds like from a young age that your physical eyes were also picking up on energy and color and those vibrations as well as your third eye. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah.
And so I love too that you're like, something must be wrong with their eyes because they can't see that. I love, because a lot of us as kids, we do the opposite. And that's how I was like, I was told like, no, that's not here. No, that person's dead. And like that, like shut it down. And you had the opposite, which I freaking love that. That's so fun. You just are like, no, it's there. You might need to work on that for you.
I'm so glad that's how I dealt with it.
Yes.
Because like there was no spiritual closet I ever needed to come out of, because it was so real to me.
I love that. Yeah, it was a spiritual coming out. And actually, I've personally only come out of my spiritual closet a few years ago, and everything is like whoosh opened up. I was so afraid. It was like, and I think I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs who are very like, you know, left brain and not like really woo, but they're woo friendly. And they're like, wait, I could do intuition stuff too. And I help them with tapping in. So I think Like we have to go to the path that we have to go through so that we can help people who we're supposed to help. But I'm so like, I'm loving this conversation that your physical eyes and your third eye are picking up on these things from people. So you've been doing this. Did you have formal training in addition to just like your natural abilities?
In terms of the energy healing,
Yeah.
no. So I'll go back in my story a little bit to kind of explain how it all went. So I had a really difficult upbringing. I was suicidal by the age of 14. I had an anxiety disorder. I was severely anorexic, very skinny, and I started therapy. It kind of kept me alive, but after I graduated from high school, I still wasn't doing well at all. Like I was barely even alive, and I'd always kind of assumed that I was going to die really young because I didn't really have anything to live for. And yeah, I was so different from who I am now. And I enrolled in fashion school thinking, well, that's something I can do for a little bit. But I didn't really have, like, I was dreaming of like what I wanted, but it felt completely unrealistic for me to achieve. I thought, dreaming of like traveling around the world and doing all these amazing things, but it was really just a dream. It wasn't something that I ever really considered that I could actually make happen. And so after high school, I enrolled in fashion school. I was studying, and then I was also drinking a lot, like just any drugs, any drinks that you would put in my hand, I would take it. I just wanted to numb and dumb. And I remember in the middle of the night in the winter, just waking up at a party. It was like another party night. I was really drunk, high on whatever. And I just woke up kind of in this room of people, and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? Because it had felt like until that day, I'd always kind of assumed that the traumas that I experienced were too terrible for to be healed, because I hadn't known anybody who had been through what I had been through. In addition to that, I had seen therapists that said, well, we can put you on medication, but we can't really help you. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, well, I don't want to be on lifelong medication. And so I ran home through the middle of the night, and I remember just tears streaming down my eyes and thinking, I never even chose to live. Like I always just assumed that my life was such a big stinking mess and that there was just no way out. And I kept talking to all these adults and experts who all told me that there was kind of no solution for me. That they had helped other people, but I kept getting rejected because people said my case was too severe and stuff like that, and that they couldn't help me. And I appreciate that, because if they didn't feel comfortable helping me as therapists and psychiatrists and stuff, then it's great that they said that. But at the same time, it made me think, wow, so there really is no future for me. But as I was running home, I was thinking to myself, but I never really tried it myself. Like, I really don't have anything to lose. And I never really tried. So that was the day that I stopped drinking, haven't had a drink ever since, stopped doing drugs altogether, started meditating, started researching the brain and the nervous system and researching what trauma was about, researching the body and how cells just kind of grow back and all these things. And I just kind of thought to myself, like, even if all these things that I'm studying won't help, and even if nothing comes of it, at least then I'll have tried. Because that was kind of why I was so mad at myself, because I just kind of assumed that everybody else was right and I wasn't even willing to try. So that was kind of how I even started on the healing path. And at the time, I was still really not thinking that I would ever even survive past my 20s or help anybody with this.
Wow. So I'm just going to pause for a second, because you were having all this trauma happen in your life. You were feeling terrible about yourself, sort of like there's no way out, there's no solution, everybody's rejecting me. Were your parents involved? Was there anybody who was like, we're going to get you help, it's going to be okay? Or were you just kind of like, sorry, all these doors are shutting in front of you, and you kind of had to find your own doorway for yourself?
Yeah, I didn't really grow up with a lot of family. It was more my therapist when I started therapy as a teenager who
Mm.
had who she was invested in me graduating from high school, and that was
Oh,
so weird for me, for somebody to look out for me and things like that. And I remember
yeah.
just feeling such discomfort around her, thinking, why do you want to help me? Like, what? This is so strange. But I didn't really have a lot of support like that around me.
Wow. So it was really that night when you just happened to wake up and that was your real true awakening of like, I can do this and maybe I could try. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And I just feel like there's so many people who need to hear this right now that maybe a little hopeless. Maybe they're trying the traditional medical route or they've gone through therapy and they're not getting to the place where they feel like they could get to, or maybe they're still feeling a little bit like, is it even worth it? So this is really important for people to hear. So you found this sort of like sliver of light and you started to kind of walk towards it. You found that, okay, maybe I'm going to give it a shot and do this for myself. At least I can try. So where did you go from there? How did you start to shift this trauma and how did you start to kind of work on yourself?
hmm So my life basically became one big experiment.
Okay.
So as I was still in university, I started, like I already said, I started meditating a lot. So I would meditate for 8 to 10 hours a day and just like work on my brain and try to figure out how to heal what was going on with me. And I started eating an Ayurvedic lifestyle. I got up at 4 in the morning, chanted for 2 hours, and like tried using sound therapies and all sorts of things. So I really just experimented on my own. And then I discovered Kundalini yoga and I tried that. And so as I was doing that, my friends saw me just change in the weirdest way. And at the time, what I was doing was still so new. I lived in this very small university town. Nobody knew what yoga was. Nobody knew what Ayurveda was or anything like
Right.
this. And so my friend said, "What you're doing is so weird. Also, you're so ripped. What's going on with your body? Why are you so strong?" Because I was practicing so much yoga. And so my friend said, "Could you please teach us yoga?" And so I started teaching yoga at the local park. I put a little hat down. I called it hat yoga. More and more
Oh,
people came, and I played like deep house music, and I just made it. It was really a very creative yoga class. And at some point, 40 to 50 people showed up, and
wow.
afterwards, people stayed and started asking me questions and said things like, I have these problems that that I was trying to talk to my therapist about, but they're not really able to help me. Or, why am I struggling with this? Why is this not working in my life? And I kept telling them, like, you're asking the wrong person. Please go ask a professional. Like, I'm just experimenting. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm still a mess myself. My life is still a mess. I have more questions than you do. I really can't help you. And at the time, I was also I was so convinced that I did not want to be a therapist, because
Yeah.
what I had experienced so far was that therapists talk about a lot of stuff, but that they don't necessarily help. And then I also
Mm.
had learned, when you talk to a psychiatrist, all they want is to give you drugs, but then you're still not really like living. And
Yeah.
so that was like my mindset at the time. So it was like, no, I'm not willing to do any of those things. And then I started discovering life coaching, and I thought, well, that's not for me either, because I don't feel like I want to be an Instagram superstar. Like, I had all these beliefs, all these limiting beliefs about what I did not want to do. So I was like a big no, kind of. And all those people kept coming to me for help, and like my no just got stronger and bolder, and I just kept wanting to push them away even more, until at some point it just felt like they kind of wore me down. And I started helping people, and I noticed, oh my god, they're getting results. And so that's when I first started to think, well, maybe I should just, get my head out of my own behind, and just kind of trust that when somebody comes to me and when they get great results from what I do with them, that maybe there's something there.
Hmm. That's so beautiful. And I think, did you feel like entrepreneurial at the time? I mean, you're doing hat yoga, people are asking for help, where you're like, I can make a business out of this.
At the time, not really. I was so reluctant. Like
Yeah.
I never really got up and thought to myself, oh, I'm going to create a business and be really
Right.
successful and make it, and like have my photo on a website. I was so reluctant. And when I think back, it was really like I fell into my business. My
Mm,
clients just kind of rushed into my life and found me. And it was me who kind of needed to get on board that this was my soul's work. Even
mm,
though I felt like I wasn't good enough. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew that I didn't want to be like other people I had worked with who just don't get the results that people really need. And I made a promise to myself that I was going to develop a method that really helps and that I was only going to let myself do this if I really give people results. A couple years later, I remember being enrolled in a life coach training and telling my coach, I think I'm not good enough. And she said, well, you need to believe in yourself more. And I think you are good enough. And I kept telling her, no, I'm not good enough. I'm just not giving my clients the results that I want them to get. So I feel like part of my rebelliousness and part of my reluctance and all those blocks that I had in the beginning just kind of also really put me on this path of I'm only going to do this work if it really helps.
mm.
And so that's also something that drove me insane for many years as I was trying to develop my actual work. Because I really wanted it to be so good and so predictable that it really helps people.
Yeah. And I love that too. So do you know what your Myers-Briggs personality type is? I'm like totally putting you
Yes,
on the spot. What is your
I'm INTJ.
I was going to ask you if you knew you were. I was like, you sound like an INTJ. One of my best friends is an INTJ, and she's all about processes and like all. And my brain doesn't work in that way. I'm kind of like, woo, like I'm so different, so big picture. And she's like details, da 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 da. And I'm like, this is sounding like an INTJ where you're like, look, I want a method. I want it to be proven. I want it to work. I need you to get results, and or else I'm not doing it. I love that. So developing, and so were you working like other jobs at this point? Like you're creating your own methodology, you're taking life coaching. Is this like your primary focus, or did you have other stuff going on in the background as well?
So, as I was studying fashion and the yoga classes and then the
Mm.
workshops after and the stuff, as that started to happen, it dawned on me within a couple of months that just fashion wasn't going to happen for me, that
Okay.
like the pull in this direction was too strong. Kind of
Right.
felt like I was pulled in that direction without really was being ready to actually go there.
Right.
It was very clumsy. So yeah, and then when I started my business and I started getting clients really early on. Like, I think my first client. I live in London now, and I think my first client was a yoga celebrity in London who found me online. So
Wow.
that's kind of the first client that I counted, who's not an in-person client. And so like the clients kept coming really, really quickly. So my business built relatively fast. And then on the side, just to keep my sanity, I worked at a lingerie shop 2 days a week,
Okay.
just to kind of like, because if I had worked in my business full time from the very beginning, I think my personal fears and blocks and no attitude, I think that would have, been really, really difficult. So I did have a part time job in the beginning a little bit for my personal sanity.
Okay. And so give us the timeline as of like right now. So how long has this process how long did that process sort of take from, you know, finding your way to doing all this deeper work, meditating so long, doing yoga, going through life coaching, and then creating your methodology and like where we are today? How many years are we talking here?
Maybe 5.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's like, if you look back, that's relatively short. It
Yeah.
probably didn't feel like that.
I started my business about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it must have been 5 years ago that I really started to be kind of dragged onto this path that I really love now. But at the time, I was like, what the hell is this?
I love that. You're like, here we are, I guess. So creating your method of healing, and is that what you're calling family constellation therapy?
So my method is a my method is kind of a mix of a couple different things. So as an
Okay.
energy healer, I read people and I kind of see where they're blocked. So I see the family blocks, the personal blocks, the money blocks, the business blocks, just all that kind of stuff. It's kind of, when I look at a person, like, it's this rich tapestry of all sorts of things, and I can kind of ask which blocks need to be removed for my client to get a specific result. It's like, it's very mechanical. It's kind of like working on a computer. It's really interesting.
Oh, cool.
And so that's one thing that I do. And then another tool in my toolbox is family constellation therapy.
Okay.
And this is something that has been developed by a German missionary called Bert Hellinger. And it's basically about healing family systems. So as an energy healer, I work in your personal energy field. So everything that you've experienced over the course of your life kind of gets stored in your energy field. Your personality is stored in your energy field. And your family system also has an energy field. It's basically like an energy bubble that we get born into as children. So it's like you get plopped into this energy field, and then that energy field affects you. So if within that energy field, there's a wealth set point where your family usually only lets themselves receive $2,000 a month, that gets downloaded into you, and then that's kind of the amount that you will attract. Or if there's a predisposition to breast cancer running in your family system, it could be that you are inheriting that. So your family system very strongly affects you as well. So with someone who's really new to my work, usually what I do is I look at their family system and see what are the major dynamics that are affecting them negatively. So if I, using the example of money, if somebody comes to me and they'll say, really, really struggle to get my finances on track, then I'll go through the family system and see what are family patterns, family dynamics that are inhibiting the flow of abundance in your life. And then when we've fixed that, then we move into the personal energy field and we clear anything else up. It's kind of like turning up all the faucets of abundance in your life. And I do it at both the family level as well as the personal level.
Okay, I'm fascinated. And I want to pare it down for people who don't speak energy and are just like, what is she talking about? What does she mean? She goes through it. So for those of you, so we're going to have this podcast on video as well. So we'll be on YouTube. So for you guys, you've got to see how Hannah's she's moving her hands around. You're literally I'm literally seeing her tweaking different knobs and systems and making this one work so that this one can talk to this one. But can you kind of take us down and slow it down a minute and sort of explain what you mean by going through the systems like a computer system? Can you explain, when you say I start with the family and then I work on the personal, what does that look like for you? And what are you actually doing? What are people receiving from you?
That's such a good question. I also wonder where to start, because the way that I go through a family system is really different than how I go through a personal energy field. So what do you suggest?
I was going to say, so my version of this. so I've been doing energy healing. I've been trained as an energy healer to read and interpret energy from all the different energy systems. When I'm with a client, I can feel the different energy places, like energy centers where it's blocked. And when I go in, I can maybe see, feel, interpret, sense what is going on that impacts their business. And so we shift that, and then we kind of go to the next one and go to the next one and then clear the whole. That's almost like my process. And so once the whole thing is cleared, then it's okay, what's the next step in order for them to hit that goal or clear that next thing or whatever they came to the session wanting to address. Okay, now that you're clear, we cleared those blocks, what is the next step? That's kind of my process. So I guess I'm asking what does your process look like? Can you share a little bit about what does it mean to go through? I used your word, go through your family system. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, okay. So, I actually wonder, should we do a quick 5-minute meditation so I can show everybody what their family systems look like?
Yes. And whenever guests do meditations, we also make it a separate download so people can just get the meditation on its own. So if they want to just go into it too, this would be great. I love this. Yes.
I'm so excited. Perfect. All right. So for those of you who are driving, please do not close your eyes and get the download instead. Everybody else, go ahead and close your eyes. And picture a room. Any room that you picture is just perfect. And then imagine walking into the room. And then find a place to stand. Anywhere you feel you want to stand is just right. And then have your mom walk into the room. And have her find a place to stand, and then your dad as well. All right, so family constellation therapy works in the energy field of your family system. You can think of it as kind of like a web that connects all family members of your family. And it's something that exists beyond space and time. In biology, it's actually called the morphic field. It's something that can be measured, and a lot of research is being done on it because it really affects us in such a major way. So even if your mom or your dad have passed away, or even if you're out of touch with them, or even if you don't know one of your parents, or if you've been adopted, this healing that we're about to do, it works anyway. So have your biological parents stand in the room, and then have your siblings walk into the room. And just to keep this healing simple, only have your biological siblings walk into the room who share the same parents as you. Their siblings are really important too, and it's awesome how we have so many patchwork families in this day and age. But just to keep it simple, just your biological siblings. All right, now that everybody has found a place to stand, have a look around the room. And just notice what the energy is like, what the atmosphere feels like, and see if you might already get some insights into what's going on in your family system. All right, so now we're going to reorganize your family. If you're not already in the center of the room, walk on over to the center. And then look around the room and see if you can identify the part of the room that represents the future. This can be an open wall, it can be a painting, a window, a door, anything at all. Then face the future. All right, so now we're going to have your mom walk up to you. She's going to stand behind your left shoulder. And then take a moment to move your mom a little bit back or a little bit towards you, and just kind of feel what distance feels right. So usually there's a click that happens. It just feels like you have the right distance. Great. And so many of us have experienced some trauma with mom. So if this is you, imagine drawing a red boundary around her on the floor. So this is going to contain her energy a little bit, so it feels safe, right, and good for her to stand behind you. And then only the good parts of her can reach you. And then have your dad walk up to you, have him stand behind your right shoulder. We're going to do the same thing, moving back and forwards a little bit until there's a click and it feels like it's the right distance. And then if this feels uncomfortable in any way and you'd like to draw a boundary around dad, go ahead and do that. All right, and then have your siblings walk up to you. Have your older siblings stand to your left and your younger siblings stand to your right. So you and your siblings are in one line in front of your parents. Older siblings to the left, younger ones to the right. Then have your older siblings take just a tiny step forward. Yeah, so they get to be a little bit ahead of you. They get to pave the way for you. And then your younger siblings, have them take just a tiny step back so they're a little bit closer to the parents. They get a little bit more support. So now you and your siblings are kind of at a diagonal in front of your parents. All right, and so take a moment to remember how you were standing when you first came into the room. Most people I work with have family systems that are pretty jumbled when we first start working together. And so now we've just created some order, so all of you are standing in the right order for you. So humans are similar to wolf packs or to groups of horses. There's kind of an inherent hierarchy that feels best. Every person within the family system has a right role for them, a right place. When everybody is in the right place for them, people have lots of space to grow. People also have lots of space to move forward. So now that you're standing here, imagine looking ahead of you into the future. And so you might notice that there's a lot of space. You might notice that there's a lot of freedom. And that you actually could take some steps into the future should you choose to. And so this is especially interesting for people. And this is something that happens a lot, that we first look at the family system and children are actually standing behind their parents. So they can't really walk into the future, or they don't really are in the right position for them, or there's no space for them to grow and evolve. So if this is you, just kind of feel the difference. Feel what it feels like to be in the right role for you. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable and new, and that's just perfect. You might need to acclimate to this just a little bit. And then take a moment to lean back into your parents. So depending on your relationship to your parents, you might feel comfortable leaning back a lot, or you might just want to lean back a little. However much feels right. It's totally okay. So lean back and imagine life force energy flowing into you from your parents. Love and support flowing into you from your parents. So oftentimes people struggle with money because they have a broken relationship to their parents, and so that life force energy can't really flow. So it's like, if your parents never supported you, how can you now let money support you? How can you now let your business support you? How can you now know that it's safe, right, and good to receive lots of love and abundance into your life? And we can even take this one step further. Imagine behind your parents, your grandparents. Imagine behind your grandparents, your great-grandparents. And just imagine legions and legions of ancestors. And just lean into them and allow their love and energy and support to flow into you. And so many of us have really been deprived of all this help and support. And you might want to stay here and just soak it up for a little while. You might want to just fill yourself up with all this family support. So take a moment to drink it in, fill yourself up. So this life force energy that's flowing into you, it's kind of like the fuel for a car. The more you fill yourself up, the more fuel you have to go and the further you can get. And the greater your capacity to receive this love and support from your family, the greater your capacity to receive money and abundance and freedom will also be. So imagine filling yourself up until it feels like you're complete for now. All right, and we're gonna make one more little test. Look back into the future and see what it feels like now to be standing here. So what we could do now is we could place your career in front of you. And we could have you take some massive steps forward and help you create a really amazing career. We could put a business in front of you that you could walk into and build. We could put your family, your kids in front of you. So just kind of notice what has happened just from doing this little healing. Awesome. And then allow your lips to curl into a smile and gently blink your eyes open.
Wow. That was That was incredible. Thank you for that. And I mean, I can speak for everybody who's going to listen to this, that it's going to really shift a lot of people. The biggest thing that I felt as soon as you started, I started tasting metal. That's usually when I will channel spirits. And it's like as soon as you started to open up that room, it was the support from all of my ancestors that started to come in. And when you reorganized us, I felt this wave of freedom, like, oh, now I can move forward. And I got so many insights just from the placement. And it's like, oh my gosh, like it's so subtle and so deeply profound. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. That was a gift.
You're so welcome. I remember when I did it for the first time, and it just felt like this wave of relief. It felt like a chiropractic adjustment where things clicked into place.
Yes.
And I could not have told you before how things should be, but as soon as it clicked into where it was supposed to be, I felt like, yes, this is right. It's that sense of rightness, that sense of relief. And we just did a constellation on your family. We can do the same constellation on money. We can do the same constellation on your relationship. We can do a constellation on your business. We can do a constellation with your clients. And so it's really about clicking and popping things back to where they belong so love and life force energy and money and abundance can flow. You know, if we were to talk to a chiropractor, they would say, like, if your bones and your joints are completely misaligned, it's just that your body doesn't function as well as it should.
Yes.
And that's just what I love about family constellation therapy so much.
Yes. And when you said click, that reminded me. So when you said, like, when you start with the mother, place her and it will be like a click. Before you said click, I had this like wave chill when she moved. And I was like, oh, that just feels good. And the same exact thing happened right before you said it should just click, I'm like, this is so cool. I love that. And so when you say constellation, you're really talking about literally a configuration of where things belong so that your energy can move. So thank you for explaining it in this way, because it helps me understand, and I'm absolutely positive it will click for the listeners as well. So now I'm like, okay, gonna hire you personally. And I think everybody who's listening is probably like, another thing, can I ask you more questions? They're probably going to want to ask you a lot of questions after this session. So, and I can feel the words that you were saying in the meditation, as well as how having these things sort of like organized, it allows your life force to move. So this, I'm sure, is the satisfaction that you're looking for, but never got when you said, I need to get results for people. Right?
Yes. And so you know a little bit about me already. So what I loved about it most was that my family did not need to be in the same room.
Yeah.
Because it's just a reality. Like, many of us get born into family systems where a parent just isn't present, whether they're in jail or they're institutionalized or they've passed away or we just don't know them. Many of my clients have been adopted. Sometimes we just can't talk to them. And what I love about family constellation therapy is that you can do all those healings and constellations and we don't need anybody to be present, and I also, something that's most fascinating to me is that my clients always come to me and they say, I think my family system wants a healing. It's like the entire ancestry kind of taps my clients on the shoulder and says, I think it's time. Like, we want to feel better. And it's such an honor because I get to work with millions of people, basically, in one family system as opposed to just one. And it's the entire family system that says, like, we're just done. We want relief. We want to feel better. We want to flow. We want to be happy. Like, all of us want more abundance, regardless of where we are. And the actual results in real life are just astounding. Like, where families are finding back together and people are flourishing and thriving, and it's so magical and awesome.
And I think it says something about, the desire to kind of end those soul contracts of like depression and anxiety and lack and, I mean, et cetera, abuse, like all kinds of things that it's almost, I love hearing that as like this collective energy that's like, no, it ends now. And you're going to be the person that's going to be the catalyst to get this shift to happen. And, you know, to talk to people like a little bit more, like go more woo woo, you know, Hanna kind of mentioned like, this is sort of this, it's affecting all different levels. So we know that time isn't linear. It's cyclical. We can see that there is no like past, present, and future. It's all happening currently right now. And so this work it's literally doing these big shifts for your children's children's children and also your great great grandparents, like all simultaneously. It's really multidimensional. It's really super cool.
It is amazing. I've been doing this for a few years now, and every time I get to facilitate a constellation, I'm as much in awe as my clients are and as you guys are, because it's just so amazing to see how it all shifts and works. Like my jaw will probably be forever on the floor.
Right. And I think that's really neat because I think as energy healers, I can speak for all energy healers, but we don't know what we're going to walk into. There's not like here's the beginning, middle, and end of how every session looks. They're all uniquely different because everybody has their own unique stuff going on. And so it is kind of fun. It's always surprising for us, but it's always fascinating. And I can feel it in your energy too. Is like, there's this humble gratitude of like, wow, I get to see this and experience this. Is like, wow, it's amazing to be a part of that. So I guess I would love to know, I mean, it's a new awareness for me. I didn't know what a family constellation was, and hearing it from you and experiencing it. So that was a gift that you gave me to be able to experience that. So thank you. But for people who are struggling or still in trauma, or they're still not finding help and they're still getting those like, well, you can only get this route, or, you know, you're going to have to be on lifelong medication. How can somebody find you or find somebody like you if they're kind of stuck in the same, like, you know, paradigms of like medical or therapy and like period?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just what you said, I really loved that you brought up I've kind of tried it all. Like you made a motion with your hands, kind of like a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And sometimes people ask me like, how do I know that I need family constellation therapy?
Mm.
And you know you need family constellation therapy when you've read the books, when you know what you're supposed to do, when you're a smart person. You know, if somebody came to you and they had the same problem, you would be able to tell them what to shift, but you're still stuck in the same patterns and you just can't shake them. So some of my clients come to me and they'll say, I have a PhD in psychology. I don't know why I'm so depressed. Or people will say, I'm a financial advisor and I'm so deep in debt. Or people will say, it just feels like money is like flying out of my life and it makes no sense at all. Or people will say, I'm just repelling love. Like, what the hell is going on? It's these poltergeist kinds of things that are usually in your family system, because most of us know our biggest issues come from our family system, but then hardly anybody actually works on that. Then we
Right.
do hypnosis and we meditate and we do yoga, but it's not really that we're going to the root cause. So for
Mm.
those of you who are wondering, do I need family constellation therapy? Look at your life and kind of think, do I have a persistent recurring pattern that I haven't been able to break with the tools that I've already used? Because then it can really point to the fact that it's a family thing. And then, so family constellation therapy is traditionally being done in groups.
Mm.
It's very big in Latin America, places like Chile, Argentina. It's also very big in the Netherlands and in Germany. I have so many clients in the United States because that's still where it's not very well known. So I'm somebody who works virtually with people around the world to facilitate constellations because many people just don't have them in their neighborhood. So you guys can Google family constellation therapy wherever you are and then just kind of feel into, you know, is this somebody who I would like to work with? If you would like to do it virtually with me, you can head on over to my website. It's hannabier.com, HANNABIER.com, and I work virtually with people, which is just how I was guided to do it because so many of us really need this work.
Right. And the internet is a magical thing, especially for us energy healers, that we don't have to be just confined to brick and mortar with the people who are in our town, that you can shift things in an instant and you don't have to be in the same exact room as people, but that everything can move quickly and you can help people from all over the world. You can help more people and help millions of people. Are there any books or resources that you feel like could be helpful for people who are, a little bit more analytical and they're like, look, I want to learn a little bit more about this stuff. And I'm more like, let's go in, like I'm ready. But for people who are ready to like research or learn a little bit more, are there any books that you recommend?
It's funny you should bring it up because I'm about to release my first book. So I would actually recommend you guys get on my email list because depending on when this podcast will be released, the book might already be out when you guys listen to it. I'm really in the final stages. It could be out any week at this time. And so in my book, I'm guiding you guys through a deeper process of family constellation therapy and energy healings and creating your ideal life. So I basically wrote this book because I didn't really have an answer to your question. So the founder of Family Constellation Therapy sees himself as a philosopher. So
Yeah.
to recommend books by him doesn't really work because he doesn't talk about the how, he just talks about the why. And there don't really seem to be any books that really describe family constellation therapy in a way that guides you through healings and stuff like that. It's just something that, I don't know, doesn't really exist. So stay tuned for my book because that's basically what I would recommend.
Oh, I love that. Well, it probably will come out around that time because usually the time that I record, it's a few months out before it broadcasts and airs. So it could be like perfect timing. It always is. Like, that's what's so funny when I talk to guests and I'm like, if there's anything you want to promote, they're like, well, not right now, but in a few months, I'm like, well, it's probably going to air at that time. So it's actually perfect. So, so we can get on your email list from your website so we can get involved with how we can get your book. And what about certifications? Are you going to be certifying other healers to be able to do this methodology, your style of therapy as well?
Yeah, I don't run any big teacher trainings, but I do individual teacher trainings. So a prerequisite to get to do this work, because it is like quite a big responsibility. And it's also not easy because we talk about all the things nobody talks about. In family constellation therapy, we talk about things like murder, war crimes. We talk about incest, and it's really not. It's not easy. So the people that I do train usually have been clients with me. They've done their own healing, and then they go through a teacher training with me. So I do certify and teach. But there are many prerequisites, people, I don't teach everybody because I just want to keep the quality of family constellation therapy very high. As an INTJ, it's how I roll.
I love that. That's how it should be. I know I sometimes, I guess I catch myself sometimes when I hear, oh, well, I'm like Reiki certified. I'm like, everyone's Reiki. Everyone's got Reiki. Everyone does Reiki, which is great. And I'm happy for Reiki. And it's like, there's so much more that we can do. And I love that you're holding the container for this work to be sacred with people who are ready to implement the work for the people who need it. So that actually makes everybody, I think, feel a lot safer too. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate you sharing this work. I really, I can't even thank you enough for being able to take me and the listeners through the meditation. We will have it as a separate download. So usually our episodes come out on Tuesdays, and then we'll have our meditations or complimentary episodes on a Thursday. So this is going to be a powerful week for all of our listeners. So thanks for that gift. And how can people find you? Your website, hannabier.com. Is that accurate?
That's it.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And so you guys can sign up for her email list. You can get on her book list. You can follow her on all the places. And I would so love to hear from you guys after doing that meditation, or even just listening to Hanna's story, on how much she has done work on herself and how she's come so far in really a relatively short amount of time. Now she's helping so many people on such a huge level. If this work resonated with you or impacted you, I know some of you might be in tears, like, holy crap, this was amazing. We would so love to hear from you, and you can tag me and Hanna on Instagram and just let us know that you are listening. Let us know if there was a breakthrough. And certainly I would encourage you to reach out to Hanna personally and to give her a little love as well. So Hanna, thank you so much for listening. I would love to have you back as a guest, and we can dive even deeper next time. So thank you so much for being here and for the gift that you've given all of our listeners.
Thanks so much for having me. I really loved it.
Oh, good. I appreciate it.